were just saying that you had a large meeting and you heard from a lot of members of the league.
It was a large meeting related to celebrating 100 years and looking at women for the future. Will they continue to keep working? We had a panel of 3 women that have elected office in high school, in the homeowners community, and in the Pasquayaqui tribe.
Do
So-
you want to add to that?
She's the president. She presided over the whole
I
thing.
presided over it. We honored women from around the community.
Yes.
We had different sponsors who bought tables, and they would honor a particular woman, and we had all of them stand. Women are doing really good work in the community, and we're very proud of them, and we wanted to recognize them.
Now, what are some issues that, from the league's perspective, really stand out this election cycle?
Well, I think environment stands out.
Healthcare stands out.
Healthcare does. Gun safety probably stands out. with us.
Immigration.
Yes.
One of the things that the league does is we have voter education programs, 6 of them per year. We have them in September, October, November, and then January, February, March. And we specifically have programs that address the issues of the day. And we have had them on climate change and immigration and gun safety, those kinds of programs, the 2020 census, things that we feel that the community needs to know more about. And we'll get a panel of experts that will talk about that, so that, and the community is always invited, the public is invited, so that they can be, we want educated, intelligent voters. And so we have these voter education programs in order to educate the public. And so those are the kinds of issues that are also important in the election coming up.
They're live streamed or going to be on podcasts from now on, I guess. A lot of people actually watch.
Now, when you talk about voter education, is that a touchier issue these days because social media, the internet in general, it's so easy for all kinds of bad information to flow out there, and for people to really latch onto and decide this is what they believe?
Well, you can't do much about all that bad information. You know, we register voters and we provide a voter information. And we try to work with the legislature to stop suppressing voters. You know, there's always a movement to suppress, to, you know, get more signatures on initiatives or to put in more restrictions on people that get the signatures from initiatives. So it seems like we're always fighting, asking our legislators to fight against the restrictions on our participation as citizens.
Are they some of the folks who are most interested in doing the suppression you're talking about?
Well, not the legislators that we talk to from here. We have a lot of legislators, I think, from this area, from Pima County, that are pretty good at supporting our issues. Several of them are members, you know. So I don't see them as restrictive as some of the other legislators in the state, unfortunately. They want to extend empowerment vouchers, for instance, which we oppose that because it's taking money away from public schools and, you know, it has not been used carefully everywhere.
You know, you're talking about being a nonpartisan organization. And in a lot of cases, some of the issues you talked about,
But
in the
s-
world of politics,
right.
sometimes even taking up an issue is seen as taking a side, even mentioning an issue.
You're right about that. That's why I said I thought Bloomberg had some commercials that brought about issues people could start thinking about, even if they weren't interested in him as a candidate. Oh,
Uh-oh. We should take a moment to mute our phones. So,
Mine is muted.
I'm sorry.
I forget sometimes too, so.
So when we come back, I'd like to mention something about our voter education programs, speaking on both sides of an issue,
Okay.
most of the time.
I've got it on vibrate, I think.
A lot of times when I'm in here to be on air or something, I just don't bring them in the room.
I should have
So-
left it in the car.
But So anyway, what was that issue you were about to broach?
Oh, yeah.
You were asking about the misinformation. And what we do is when we have our voter education programs, we'll have a panel of experts. Many times we'll have two different sides of an issue so that people can see what those different sides are. Now, the league does have positions, and those positions that we take are positions that we have studied.
For 2 years.
For 2 years, we read studies, we talk to experts, and what we do is we try to have the position that we feel is the healthiest, that will make the most amount of people thrive and be productive in our society. And that's how we come down on a particular side on an issue.
By a healthy solution, what do you mean?
Well, what makes people happy? What's physically healthy for people? What helps with education of people? All those kinds of things.
Now, when you decide what stands to take, how do you vet out your information to make sure that, yes, this is a credible source? Because it's so easy to hit a source that is not credible anymore.
That is true. However, what we do is we do our best to read the experts, the people who are the experts who are known to be the experts in their field. One of the things we're studying right now is gun safety and the kinds of things that need to be done for gun safety in our community and our state. It's a statewide study. And so the kinds of studies we're studying are the ones of the experts in that field. And we can read both sides also, and we can talk to experts on both sides of an issue also to come upon
We have a
Well-
national position on guns, on gun safety, but we're also looking at it as a state, studying it from the different locals in the state. I mean, and we can have, forums, or we can also have these monthly meetings on those issues. If we already have a position on it, we can have all on that side on the panel. I mean, we have an up-and-coming environmental March meeting, which is on Save the Saguaros or Get Rid of the Buffalo Grass, because buffalo grass is burns at such a high rate. If we have many fires, it will kill the saguaros in the area. That's going to hurt our tourism and a lot of a local kind of issue.
Now, when you talk about guns, I know that's one of those issues where just a
Yeah.
body of research has been controversial because the federal government's been restricted on
Yes.
gathering research.
correct.
They've
That's
not
right.
allowed, Congress to gather research. Yeah.
So, what are some other issues? I mean, a minute ago you mentioned environmental.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you decide that's an issue you wanted to settle upon?
That actually comes from a national, we have a national convention every other year, and we have a fairly strong position. That's why I said I should have brought my national booklet on reducing carbon we should work toward reducing carbon one way or another, a carbon tax or something that could go through that would be bipartisan. And it was an issue for our Congress, but since Congress is not doing anything much, or the Senate is not taking up what the House has done, it's going to be long range, evidently.
What's your take on just how effective or action-oriented Congress is or is not?
Well, they are supposed to.
The House seems to be very action-oriented. They've passed about 300 bills that they've passed on to the Senate.
Well, it's not
The
taking
Senate,
them up.
the Senate is more concerned right now about getting judges in. That's where their action is, not in considering the bills of the House right now.
Now, do you ever run into people who say, "Well, you say you're not partisan, but I don't think so"?
Of course, because many of the positions we've taken are similar to one political party or another. They may not have started out that way. I mean, the same thing with like pro-choice. I mean, it was Goldwater's wife that was head of Planned Parenthood or started it in Arizona. but we, support choice for women, and that's become an issue that has become partisan in some places where it started out both Republicans and Democrats supported it.
Now, if somebody wants to join in these discussions, these forums that the league organizes, how would they do that? And can they have some input in suggesting what you do discuss?
Well, we invite the public to come to our voter education programs. And the process that we have is that people have 3x5 cards on
They
their
can ask a
seat.
question.
And they hold it up, and we pick it up, and we take it to the moderator, who then goes through the different cards to make sure there are no duplicates, and then asks the questions. Now, that's a little different than the forums that we put on. We also have forums of the candidates for office. Last year we had a forum. The first part was with the people running for mayor, and the second part were the candidates running for city council. And same thing, the people in the audience lifted up cards in order to ask questions. So those are the kinds of things that we do of service to the public to educate them about the candidates who are running. We also, on occasion, have issues forums about a particular issue that may be coming up before the, on a ballot. We also have a speakers bureau, by the way. We have speakers going out and speaking on all different topics about voting and about the propositions that are on the upcoming ballot, which we don't know yet, by the way, what they are. We won't know that until about September.
Now, if our whole political system is set up on the idea that we want educated voters making educated choices, what's your take on the level of political literacy out there these days?
Well, I think it's pretty confused because of internet, because of what people get on their smartphones. I think that it can be quite confused on the literacy. We just heard this morning that the presidential election is going to be decided by women over 50 this year. There was quite a bit, I guess, of research that indicates that so far on Super Tuesday, that it was educated women over 50 that tilted some of the states. And that may be very true. I mean, that may be true that they do vote better. And then in the last presidential election, women in Arizona less than half that were registered voted.
What makes you think that, you heard this analysis.
Yes.
What makes you think that, yes, that particular group of women is going to be that powerful and influential, and how do you reach them this time around?
I think that they maybe, have decided what they think about the current president, and therefore they're going to go out and vote.
For or against?
For or against.
And what other issues, aside from just the personalities involved, would be influential to that group, you think?
Well, even though they're, as we say, even though they're women, I think our foreign relations would be something that women are interested in, and education they're certainly interested in. Whether or not student debt, undoubtedly, college debt of people that have graduated from college is something that people are interested in, and whether or not changes can really be made, whether or not it's possible, whether or not candidates have legs enough that they will get senators and House members with them. I think those are all things that women consider.
So one of the things that may be very important in this upcoming election is health care, because right now the Health Care Act is right before the Supreme Court, and they may decide to gut the entire thing. Obamacare, what's normally called Obamacare, and if they do, that's going to be a very big issue.
Well, we talked about how every other word is the coronavirus these days. Does
Right.
that
Well, that's going to play in.
add more intensity to healthcare debate, do you think?
Right, because, scientists do know something about viruses, and I think that will play in. I think just, I don't want the regular flu. I mean, I think that a lot of people feel that they want to hear accurate information on diseases.
I understand that this particular virus is similar to certain other viruses that are less when it does get warmer in the summer, but then comes roaring back in the fall. And so it may be at the time in November 3rd is when we vote in the general election. And it may be that when we get to that point, it is going to be a big issue at that time.
I don't know if they know that about that virus yet, but it's always a possibility. It's going to take months before they get any kind of a vaccine. So a year, it's going to take a year, they're indicating, before there's a vaccine. So
Well, there's an argument for voting by mail, perhaps.
There you go. And did you know that about 75 to 80% of Arizonans do vote by mail? It's a huge amount. And that's why there are less polling places now, too, on Election Day.
Has the whole syndrome of voting by mail changed the whole dynamic of the elections? We used to talk about, some devastating October surprise that's going to
Right.
knock some candidate for a loop. Well, by that time, a lot of people have already mailed their ballots.
Right.
I think the surprise was in Super Tuesday as far as presidential candidates are concerned. I mean, we have two older white men primarily running on the Democratic side and an older white man on the Republican side, the president, So none of the capable women got very far or got far enough. Maybe someone will be chosen to be a vice president or put into a cabinet if the Democrats win.
Any theories on why that sorted out as it did?
Yeah, I think it's sorted out because Biden has experience, and even though he doesn't have a great smile like Obama had, he has experience, and some people probably thought he's always done well among the black community in the South. And I think that the people who went to the poll and voted, decided they wanted someone who could maybe get something done with Congress. And he had a lot of endorsements. He had Clyburn's endorsement that really set him up there. He has a lot of Senate and House endorsements. I don't think that Sanders does have. He has a very few. He doesn't, as I say from an old Illinois politics time, he doesn't have legs like Biden does.
So there's a perception Biden may be willing to negotiate as opposed to digging in, and you dig in to the point where nothing happens?
Right.
I want to answer your question about whether having mail-in ballots makes a difference. And you are right that if you vote when you first get the ballot, maybe things will change by the time the election comes up. But I wanted to mention that voting rates are much higher because of mail-in ballots. So they're really a boon to voting.
I think with the way the primaries are sorted out, a few people are doing the forehead slap because they voted for candidates that
That are gone.
That
didn't
dropped
last.
out.
That could be, that could be. They should wait until their primary time.
So the presidential preference election is on March 17th, Tuesday, March 17th. And it's important, if you have a mail-in ballot, to make sure you mail it in at least a week before the election. And the reason for that is our ballots go all the way to Phoenix and then all the way back to Tucson. It takes that time to travel to get back to the recorder's office on time.
But if you're not quite decided, you've sort of given them a guide for how close can you cut it, but just not too
You
close.
can turn it in the day of.
You can turn it in the day of the election.
If you get to one of the right places.
Yes, you need to take it to a polling place, and you can drop it off at a polling place.
All right, I think that's probably going to do it, and there'll be a lot of boiling down, I'm afraid,
sure.
to get it to the kind of length we put
3
on the air.
minutes is the most.
Well, I may be able to work out a way to put the uncut interview on our website, which is
That's fine too.
Whatever
a new
is
thing that
good.
we've only been able to do in the past few years. So
I really would like to see Mark Kelly and McSally both run positive campaigns, but I don't think that's going to happen. Because Sinema did run a positive campaign. Her commercials were all on issues, and McSally didn't do that before. And she's already run a negative campaign. Kelly's just run a campaign on introducing himself. You know, if they would both just stick with the issues, I think you'd get a fairer sorting out.
Do you think the early ballot thing makes candidates go negative and be more aggressive earlier in the election?
Maybe, you know, but I don't know. Cinema was not negative last time, and so far Mark Kelly has not been. But McSally started out negative. You know, her first commercial was a negative one against Kelly.
Yeah, they do their commercials a long time before any ballots come out. So I don't think
They can I think they've decided, or their campaign managers have decided which path they're going to go. And I thought she had made some comment after she lost the last time that she didn't have the right campaign manager. But then the first commercial I've seen from her has been a negative one.
So very much like the other candidate.
Yes. We run a workshop in one high school every year and bring in elected women, and McSally always has come when she could. Gabby always came, when she was in the House also. And we just invite elected women, and they come from state legislators to county and city elected women for that one day for a morning, participating with one high school group of girls. We do this every year, and we've done it for 16 years. But, I know McSally once called and said, could she send somebody? And I said, no, you have to come yourself. We're not taking campaign managers. But she has always come and participated with that.
She has
she
many times.
liked to do it. And that was a positive thing that she did. It's positive because those girls grow up,
So what happens is called running and winning. And the girls sit down with these elected women, and on years where there are candidates, also candidates. And they ask them, what's it like running for office? What's it like being in office?
Getting
How,
money.
how do you get money, and what do you do with advertising, and how do you balance your personal life and your public life? And
You
those
should
kinds
come
of
to one
things.
of our running and winning workshops.
Oh, they're great. They're great. We have
We'll
about
have
50.
to put it down to invite him next time. I don't know where they're going to be next time. But, we rotate around. We can only do one a year because it's a lot of work. Everything we
just-
do is a lot of work.
Sometimes these young people get these politicians and candidates and point a question at them that makes them go, whoa.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the girls write their own questions. We don't give them the questions.
They get to, usually there are 3 sessions, and they from 3 different tables. The elected women rotate around, and so they usually get to talk to at least 3 women who have positions. And some of these women, like Barbara Lowell, will say, okay, my budget is so many million, and they all sort of have jumped because they realize that women have achieved major kinds of offices, and we want young women to see that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible someday we're going to get a woman president.
Someday.
Someday,
Well, I didn't actually see Warren's statement the other day, but it sounded like she had a lot of that theme. It was
Yes,
just
she
sort of
did.
she felt it was just such a disappointment to people who had high hopes for female candidates.
Right.
Yeah, she gave a very good statement. I saw that. I happened to have not been here when she did that. But she really fought. In fact, I thought she was a little frenetic fighting on taking Bloomberg on in that last debate.
She was pretty strong.
I thought, I really don't like her. I don't know if I could vote for her if she ends up being it because of the way she, attacked him.
I think there's a good chance a woman will be on the ballot
I do too.
As
I
vice
think they
president.
almost have to put a woman on as a vice
as
president.
vice president.
Whomever it is.
Yeah. Well,
Someone younger.
got to see what happens next then.
That's right.
So, I think that is probably going to do it. Is there anything either of you would like to just add? Here come the cards.
Oh, yeah, well-
The,
I was told that what we were going to talk about was the presidential preference election.
okay.
The only thing I would want to talk about would be the kind of IDs people need to have.
Oh, just
Just-
about just the mechanics of making sure
a
your
little bit
vote
of
gets lodged
mechanics,
correctly
yeah.
and all that. Sure, go ahead.
Okay, just one second. Okay,
Only in
bill,
Arizona.
phone bill, cable TV, okay.
All right, go ahead, please.
If you vote either early at an early location, voting location that the recorder's office has, or you go into the polling place on election day, you have to have an ID. You can either have a photo ID, it can be a driver's license, a state ID, passport, anything like that that's issued by a government. Or you can have two non-photo IDs. And that can be a utility bill, a cable bill, your bill having to do with your property taxes, those kinds of things. They need to be fairly recent and they need to have your name and your current address on them. That's the only way that you're going to be able to vote without a provisional ballot. If you get a provisional ballot, then you can go to the recorder's office the next day and show them these bills so that you can prove that you actually live at that place.
Well, we should probably clarify why your precise address is so important, because it has a bearing on congressional districts, legislative districts, all of that.
Right.
Right, and your polling place is where your precinct is, where your area is, that's the only place you're allowed to vote, is that one place. You can drop your ballot off if you vote early and you have a mail-in ballot. You can drop it off at any polling place. But the polling place that you are assigned is the only one you're supposed to go to, and it's assigned according to your address.
Probably good to point out that because of mail ballots, one polling place may cover a broader area than it used to. So even if you're used to voting at this church or school forever and ever, it may not be a polling place anymore.
Correct.
Correct.
And the recorder's office does send to you where your polling place is, so look at that. If you don't have that, then go on the website of the county recorder. Pima County Recorder, just Google that, and you'll get on the website and you can find out there exactly where your polling place is.